All right, Jack. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super glad to be on.
Oh, cool, man. Well, we have a mutual friend, Travis Morin, at Sticks Fishing. Well, a bunch of different things, but he told me about you. Said you're someone to keep an eye on. So I'm like, well, I'll just bring him on the show and get to know him a little bit.
Well, I appreciate to get to know any other fish heads. I'm obviously huge into fishing, so I love getting the chance to know people, get to know people like you, and obviously it's cool to know Travis. Travis he gets around, so
Yeah.
he knows a lot of people.
Well, I try to describe him. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd really know who he is. Like, he has so many different hats that he wears, and I'm wearing one of his hats now. So it's just like, he's a great guy, but yeah, he knows people within the industry and the community. So, I know, good mutual friend to have. But man, let's get to know you some, Jack. You're a young guy, got a lot of big things coming up in your future. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what you do. Not just the fishing stuff, because we already know you fish. That's why you're on the show. Just introduce yourself, buddy.
Well, my name is Jack Dice. I am 21 years old. I live in Lynchburg, Virginia, and obviously I love to fish. But the thing that I'm really into the tournament scene. It's one of the things I really love to do. So I started fishing. It's kind of interesting for me is that one of the things is like a lot of people I get to know, at least that I've gotten to know through fishing, that they had someone in their life that was really influential in getting them into the sport. And I didn't really have that. My parents don't fish. No one in my family really fishes. So it was kind of like a weird thing to come about it. So we had a family house on a lake near me, and there's a few fishing poles there. And one day I hooked a catfish, which was something other than a bluegill, and it was something that pulled back. And it was amazing how it was like, I was like 11 years old. I caught that and it was like light switch. Like instantly I was like, I have to do this all the time. It was that addiction of just feeling that and having something pull back against. It's crazy. It's this thing that we all get into. So that really kicked me off. And so actually really YouTube, fishing podcasts, reading Bassmaster magazine, those were the things, watching videos online, particularly YouTube, was the thing that really actually propelled me in fishing and got me to learning more and more and getting more into it. And so I've been a competitor. I love competition. I'm a competitive type of person. So when I found out you could compete in fishing, it was like, I love to compete. I love to fish. You can do both. I was like, this is a match made in heaven. I got to do it. So as I've grown older, I've gotten the chance to fish in some tournaments. And so that's really what I'm pursuing. I'm fishing in the BFLs at the local level. And then I'm in college right now. I attend Liberty University, which is right here local. And so that gives me the chance to stay at home and fish a lot and get to fish in the college scene, which gives me the opportunity to travel all over and see new bodies of water.
Cool, man. Well, how'd you let's talk about you cutting your teeth in fishing, man, like getting into tournaments. It's just I found it interesting, like the younger guys these days, and not that I'm super old, but I'm old, but I'm newer, I'm young in the fishing, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
I don't remember there being like college fishing teams. I don't remember like to me like fishing was just fishing. It's just something you did with your dad. Your grandpa probably took you to go fish some using worms to go fish for Brent or whatever. But the competitive fishing for like young guys just seems like a new thing to me. And I'm really curious, like how you like really cut your teeth, got into it, and kind of got where you're at now.
So it's kind of interesting. So when I got really into fishing, again, I didn't have anybody in my life who was really teaching me. So I went to, the internet and to TV, and a lot of the fishing shows that are on are competitive shows. I saw the Bassmasters, I saw the Elite Series shows. I saw at the time the FLW Tour events on TV. I saw Ultimate Match Fishing. And so I got to watch those guys compete. So obviously in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's something I wanted to do. So I follow the trails and follow the tournaments online. But from there, as far as me getting into it, I didn't really have any plans, or again, I didn't. So like, I think that was the hardest thing was like, when I started following it at age like 12, 13, when I started following the tournaments a lot, college fishing actually then wasn't that big either. College fishing still wasn't a very big thing. High school fishing wasn't really a thing. There are junior clubs around, and I tried to get into those, but it was just very convoluted and hard, and it wasn't a very big deal. So it was actually really hard to get into. So I got started fishing really. Actually, one of the things that really propelled me and got me going was here. I live here in Lynchburg. There's a guy here locally named David Dudley. And he fishes professionally. So, and
that?
Yeah, this is guy, I just name dropping for you. But anyway, I got to meet him. He had a fishing camp for kids. And so I just obviously wanted to meet him. And it was funny. I showed up to the first day of camp, and like I see him and I'm like shaking really, really bad. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, that's David Dudley. Yeah. And then I got my, my bass rods, and I'm ready. And I walk up, he's got a pond at his place, and that's where we're going to fish for the week. And I walk up and he's like, oh wow, you got bass fishing stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. He's like, there aren't any bass in here. And I was like, are you kidding me? I came here to show off bass fishing skills, and there's no bass in the pond. But at the end of the week, I blabbed a lot, talking about fishing all the time. And I guess he thought, you seem like I evidently had a knack for it, he thought. So he took me under his wing and he kind of got me into it and kind of showed me some of the ropes. And so then late when I turned 16, I fished some of the Bassmaster Opens as a co-angler where I got to practice with him. And that's where I learned a ton, was obviously being in the boat with this amazing fisherman, and then getting my first chance to compete without having to own my own boat. Right. Was just an opportunity to just get my feet wet and try it. So that's where I started.
Well, what about like when you actually started fishing? Were you just a bank fisherman? Were you able to get a hold of a John boat or anything like that? Like how did you actually, like, the early days of you fishing before meeting the dude and everything like that? Like, what were you doing? Like, how are you kind of honing your skills, man?
Well, even when I met him, I started like pretty much everyone else. I followed the progression. I started on the bank. So like that pond, he eventually started stocking bass in it. Not long after I attended his camp, and my mom would drop me off there at like 6 a.m, and I would have to convince her to get up and come on, Mom, there's an early morning bite. They're going to chew a topwater. I got to get there. And then she'd come pick me up at dark at like 9 o'clock at night in the summer. So I'd just lap this bank for so that's how I started. I started fishing the bank, and from there, I fished in a kayak a little bit. We had a little dinky kayak that was very cheap, but it's something to get me off the bank and get to fish more water, and that was really cool. And then from there, me and my buddy, a friend of mine, we invested some really big money when I was like, I think 14, 15, and we split a John boat, and it was like $200, and I thought that was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money to be dropping on a boat. Right. And so that's how I started. Fished a lot of little local trolling motor only lakes with that. And then when I started competing, and I did fairly well as a co-angler, my parents said, well, okay, you're invested. So they actually bought a really old beat up boat that was actually David Dudley's father's boat. And he sold it to me for a really cheap price. And that's how I got started fishing as a boat. So I just worked my way up, start from the bank, and then with a lot of help from people around me, was able to work up to fishing out of a boat now.
Nice. And how long have you been doing your YouTube channel? I checked it out just a little bit.
So I think I started that when I was, 14. So that's when I really started doing it. And that back in the day, there was not a lot of people doing it. So but again, this is where I learned to do it. So I really wanted to do it. Now, my mom was a little hesitant. She was a little scared of like the internet and like, are people going to watch the videos and come kidnap my son? So she's like, don't show the lake. Don't talk about the lake. Don't give your real name, that kind of stuff. So, but eventually I convinced her. I'm like, Mom, it's okay. Look at all these other kids doing it. So eventually convinced her, and I was able to do that. And that was a really cool way that I got to meet. That's how I got to meet Travis for the first time, was through what he was working with Lucky Tackle Box, and they saw my videos, and that was again a great opportunity. It's really cool to meet and connect with people through that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the way to do it now. Like just, I mean, I hate to say a new age because it's not that new anymore, but like, I mean, it's possible to meet people now. I mean, great, like just doing the podcast, like some of the people I've had the chance to talk to, just like, did I really just talk to Bradley Hallman about fishing, on the podcast? Like, geez, So I mean, it's great. It's great to see like how technology, it's like putting the right people and building opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Like it's like there's obviously pros and cons to everything, but that is certainly something I'm like, I would not be where I'm at even close if it weren't able to connect with people and meet people that I've never would have ever met in real life, in person, online, people from all over the country, but this one thing, fishing, we can all connect on and talk about. It's really cool.
All right. So where exactly are you right now with your fishing? I know you said you're doing a local trail series. I've seen the MLB and things like that. Like where are you right now with all that? I know you're also a college kid, so education comes first, or whatever your beliefs are. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you can go different ways on that. For my family, they're like, you should probably get an education, and I think it's one of those things where there's plenty of people who don't do it, and I think you can obviously move forward and try to and make a career in fishing without having a degree. And there's plenty of people who say, hey, if you have the ability to, you should. So that's really where I'm at. So that doing that means that I'm obviously spending my time focusing mostly on school, but obviously I want to compete and I want to fish as much as I can. So I'm trying to like, okay, do the schoolwork, but I really want to focus on this. So the main thing I do is, what was FLW used to have the BFLs, and that's a local trail, and they have 5 tournaments in a division. You go to the regional championship, and that gives you the opportunity to make the All-American, which is a nationally televised tournament, and then you can go from there to, at the time, the Forest Wood Cup. Now, of course, it's all bought out by MLF, but it's still the same format. So it's a chance to fish local tournaments and compete against like a lot of guys who have skill and talent in the area. So it's a good crop of anglers that gives you a good chance to really hone your skills and see how you stack up. And then also, if you do well enough, it gives you opportunities to advance and get exposure that other local smaller trails might not give you. And honestly, it was just one of the easiest ones to get into. All you had to do was sign up online and just put your entry fee in and go. And that was what made it super easy to start with that.
And when you say local, do you mean like state or region? Like that's all regional, right?
It's mostly, yeah. So it's most divisions are within about a state. So I fish division. One of the divisions I started fishing was the Shenandoah. So they fish Kerr Reservoir, which is on the North Carolina-Virginia border, Smith Mountain, which is my home lake here in Central Virginia, and then there's James River and the Potomac River. So those are the 4 fisheries that they go to, and that's all within about 4 hours. So that's about the size. Within about 4 hours driving is usually the size of a division. But the championships that you qualify for are for a region. So I'll travel to Lake Lanier. I've been to several different places. Some of them are here local, to places like Tennessee, Florida to compete in these regionals. So that gives you a chance to also fish against even a bigger batch of anglers and get to see new fisheries, which is what I really love to do, is get the chance to fish new places.
Well, how long have you been fishing like this kind of competitiveness?
So I started fishing in the BFLs as a boater I started in 17. So when I was 16 is when I fished as a co-angler, and I did that for about 2 years fishing the opens. I fished the Northern Division. So we went to Oneida, we went to Champlain, which I know you're around there. And I loved going there. So that's one of my biggest like disappointments not fishing the opens anymore, is I don't get to go to New York as much.
Let me ask you, like, what did you personally think? Because I live on Oneida, like, well, I'm like 5 minutes away from Oneida, like the north, the north western side of it. Like, what did you think of Oneida? Because a lot of people tell me they hate that lake. I'm like, why do you guys hate this lake? I mean, maybe I'm just biased because it's the closest one to me. It's like any day I can just wake up and go fish Oneida. Yeah, it's a fun fishery. It's not the biggest lake, but it's got like it's got the grass. And then it's got the deep, smallmouth, largemouth. Like, what was your opinion on Oneida?
My opinion on Oneida was I loved it. I mean, it pretty much, I don't know if I was just biased. I was just told when I went to New York that, hey, you're going to catch a bass every cast. It's like the impression I got. So I don't know if that confidence like just gives you this false impression that you're going to catch one on every cast, and therefore you actually fish like you're going to. I don't know if that like translates to you getting more bites, but I loved it. I mean, just the fact that you can go out and catch smallmouth and largemouth. Down here, we don't really have a lot of grass fisheries, so getting to do that. And it just seems like there's just a lot of bites, even if it's sometimes it's not even bass. It's just little, sometimes it's pike, sometimes it's small fish, but it just seems like you're getting numbers of bites in the north, no matter what you're doing. And I think the best way I saw it described is that a lot of those northern lakes, at least when I fished them, if it looks like it should have a bass there, there's probably a bass there. Like it's like there shouldn't be a question. If that point has some nice grass on it, you're like, man, that looks good. He's there. Yeah. And usually he's willing to bite.
Yeah. Well, like it's my home lake. So it's like, it's got a special place in my heart. Like people, they kind of complain about it. I'm like, I don't know. I catch fish there, and I know the big leagues sometimes come here and play. So it's got to be something about it.
Yeah, I don't know. So, what do people complain about? I guess I haven't really heard from where I'm at people complain.
Well, it's a very because the way it's set up, an east wind or a west wind can make that lake just horrible.
Yeah,
I was out there the other day picking on them, and I got caught out there in the eastern wind. I'm like, man, this sucks. I had to force myself to go out there. Come on a kayak too, so I don't have some of those advantages that the big boat has. So I had to go out there, suck it up, and I got pushed around a lot. So that might be some of the reason. The other reasons, I don't know. It's a very temperamental lake. Obviously right now it's fire with the pre-spawn coming up. The spawn will come up probably like later in May sometime. It's getting good, but as soon as like summer comes on, it might be the pressure. And it might just be like people don't like fishing the grass. That like, cause I don't know if you've been there, so it's a lot of grass over there. In that so I don't know. I think it still has to do a lot of pressure because it is a popular lake, and come like July, like that lake's beat up. It's already had tournaments on it. The recreational anglers have been beating it up. It's just one of those lakes that it gets a lot of pressure. So that might be it. I don't know. It's we're so spoiled up here where I'm at because we got Kayak over here. We got the St. Lawrence River north.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We got
I
Lake
love those
Champlain
places
to the east and Lake George to the east. We just got so many like good places up here. I guess people can be like, kind of picky and choosy of what lakes they're going to like. So.
That's fishermen. There's always grass is always greener. That lake's always better. They're always biting better at the next place over. Always.
Yeah.
So
going back to, like this regional thing, well, just like in general, like what's been like the biggest, like, because you're getting into like these like lower, whatever parts, I don't know what your plan is if you want to go like all the way when college is over or whatever. What's been like? What do you think of the industry, like, or as far as like just the fishing side, like the traveling, the prepping, the competition, like, and all those things. Like, what has been your thoughts of it so far? Is it like is it just fishing, or is there a lot like the work part of it? Like there's got any kind of competition, like. It's not all fun and games, you know what I mean? There's a part of it where it's like the planning, the logistics, like all that. Like what would have been like something like the learning curves on like that part of it.
I mean, obviously, like with anything you do, like it's one of those things where I guess when you tell people, it's like, oh yeah, I fish competitions. Or at least I talking to the guys who have had the chance to fish for a living. Obviously, that's the dream. That's the goal. So that's what I'd love. I'd love to be a competitive tournament angler, love to fish at the professional level, whether it be at MLF or bass. I just would love to be able to catch bass for a living because how is that not the best job ever? But also I think anything in life, like if you do it, there's always going to be bad days and hard parts of anything. Like, especially if you're pursuing something at the highest level, it's not just going to be all like, if you want to push past other people, you're going to have to push past the parts that end up being difficult. And a lot of that is what you kind of referenced is the long the hours and hours in a car, the hours and hours studying maps, the hours and hours of fishing lakes you've never been to and not catching anything. And you're like, this sucks. And it's, it's sleeting, you're freezing cold, you're shaking, the boat's breaking down, things aren't working out. And you're like, man, this sucks. And so you have to push through those. So as far as that goes, it's like, you hate to complain on those days because it's like, well, of course it's fishing, but also anything can be work. If you do it long enough, there's going to be bad days, but the good days, at least for me, have outweighed those. And that's when you put it together, when it comes together in a tournament, when you get the chance, where you just getting the chance to see these beautiful places, like getting to go to New York for the first time for me was one of those like, wow, this is amazing. It's just the opportunities that fishing has allowed me has been really cool. But the work, as far as like understanding the industry, I think what is interesting about the fishing industry to me, and one of the things I like about it, is that it is pretty small. It's actually, you realize like how you start talking to people on Instagram and things like that, or getting to know some of these people, you're like, it's such a small world. Like how many people like, yeah, I know you. It's not actually that big, which is kind of cool. You get to know people, but also I think sometimes that is disappointing going into it, is because it's so small. That's a small pie to try to take a piece of. It's not easy to do. It doesn't matter whether you want to be a fishing YouTuber or if you want to do just podcasts or be a media person or be a professional competitive angler. No matter what it is, the world of fishing the pie is not that big. And so you really have to work hard. And that's where doing more than just, especially in the day of social media, you can't just fish. It's almost impossible. You have to prove yourself valuable to companies in other ways other than just being on the water. And that's through YouTube. That's a big, obviously you see how many professional anglers all of a sudden, hey, check out my new YouTube channel every week. There's 2 new channels.
Some guy in his 50s with a great beard, like, I finally got on YouTube.
Yeah, I know.
I've never had to do it before.
It's just like every week, it's like, oh yeah, 10 new channels to subscribe to with videos every week. it's like, it is a little, that part is a little discouraging to me, at least. It's like, man, this used to be something kind of small and like, wow, something that set me apart as different. And now it's like, well, everybody's got it. Everybody got to do it. So that part's a little discouraging, but if you enjoy it, then it makes it worth it. So I still enjoy it for what it is.
Well, it's something you want to pursue. Like, this is like, you're like one of the perfect people to talk to because you are so young and you got so much time ahead of you. And you're also like, you're part of, like, you are part of a technology, driven generation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, like, I know it wasn't all around like when you were growing up, but a lot of it was around when you were a kid, learning how to do a YouTube channel when you're 16 compared to like learning how to do it when you're 38. You know what I mean? It's like the fishing, like, to me, the fishing industry is kind of weird because like, you got two sides. You got the pro anglers who are out there, cashing tournament checks and whatever, doing their thing, and then you got the content creators, the YouTubers, the podcasters, people they got their niche through like content, and it's just, I think it kind of changed the way things are because sponsors and people are looking at, well, this person has 1 million followers on Instagram and this person only has 1,600 followers on Instagram. You know what I mean? It's like, who do we invest in? What are like some of the things that you think about, like getting into this, like, because you're right. You said it earlier. It's not about the fishing, just the fishing anymore. Like, you got to do other things. Is there a part of you that like it really has to set up, as you're in college and you're thinking about your future, like really like how you want to approach it? Because there's only like two people, like two anglers I see that are really doing it right, that are like, crushing the YouTube world and cashing checks, like Brandon and some of those guys. Like what are the things that you look at, like it's not about fishing. Like, what do you really want to invest in as far as like growing in the sport? I know you already got the YouTube channel, but it's a different industry now. Like, I mean, it's I don't even know where it's going to be in the next 5, 10 years. Like, as far as like, what does the person have to do to be a success? What I mean by successful, I'm only talking about like monetary value, like really making a living off fishing, really like making a career off just the fishing part of it. It's got to be like a tough thing to think. It's like it's almost like, well, I could just go build content. You know what I mean? Like, it's to go and because when you look at when I look at like just me myself, like I'm on a smaller scale. I'm a kayak angler. I compete in the kayak world. It's nowhere near as big as what is going on the big boat world, but still at the same time, it's like gas money. You got to look for a place to stay. And then I got to try to win, and I never win. It's like fishing is the most losingest sport I've ever.
Losingest sport ever. I try to explain to people, it's like, all you do is lose. The best anglers in the world, all they do is lose.
It's really disheartening when I was talking to someone about it. It was Bradley Hallman. He's like, how many big tournaments has Gerald Swindle won? I'm trying to think. Can't think of it. He's like, yeah, he ain't won none. But he said he's a very successful guy in the fishing world because of the things he does. And just going into that, it's like, how do you look at it? I mean, it's for someone who's super competitive. It's almost like it doesn't matter how competitive you are. Like, can you bring viewers? Can you bring like there's a whole part of it that it's like it's kind of fascinating to me. But it's like it'd be hard for me to choose. Like, I've been more successful as a podcaster than I have a competitive angler, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? So like how do you look at that? Like, what do you like when you decide this is what you want to do with your life and you're young and you got this chance to really go for it, and like there really is no blueprint to it. There's no one that says this is exactly how you got to do it. This is how you're gonna be a successful angler. You kind of got to figure it out on your own. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You definitely have to figure it. There's so many different ways that guys go about it, and like you said, it is interesting now. There's more options in a way, though. It's in some ways it's more, it's still the same small pie. It's now there are more different. There are different avenues in there. There's more that's cut up into more pieces now. And like I said, I've started YouTube back when it was small, and so I knew the potential of it from watching it, because I knew that I had purchased products often because I watched a guy talk about it and use it, not just because I saw an article in Bassmaster magazine. Video is just so much more compelling of a medium. Yeah. So when that started to shift in the industry, when some of those first bigger fishing companies started recognizing the value of influencers, I certainly was on the side of like, yeah, I understand that value. Like, that companies should be using that way more. There are plenty of professional anglers who probably, as far as sales go for the support that they get, it doesn't match up for what you can do on YouTube. So I think that was a good lesson that I think probably had to be learned, that, for a lot of those guys who were maybe probably passive in their ways, the guys who
Yeah.
just competitive fished, and that you have to work for it, and that you have to be willing to adapt to change and not just be stuck in your ways. I mean, that's easier for, I don't know, I think that's like this typical stereotype of a young person to be like more adaptive, to not be so stuck in your ways. So
Right.
it's easy for me to be like, oh, of course everyone should change. But also, I don't know, at least for me watching, it seems like more and more that it's kind of balanced out a little bit. I think you see some of these bigger YouTubers who are now fishing tournaments as a way to create narrative and create storylines that they
Yeah.
can use in their videos. And you see tournament guys creating YouTube channels. And it seems to me, at least, like there was like a big shift where it's like suddenly guys realize, oh my gosh, these YouTube guys are making way more impressions and selling way more product than these guys who just have our logo on their jersey for the
Right.
money. Like, this isn't working out. And so I think it seemed like there was a lot of shift to suddenly push to influencers. And then, so therefore professional anglers picked up their game, and now it's kind of balanced out. And I think there's two niches, right? There's guys who will never fish a tournament. They don't care about that at all. And then there's guys, I know from from being in the tournament scene, there are guys who that's what they're passionate about. That's what they care about, is strategy and planning,
Right.
and and game plans and how it comes together. And so those are the guys that they're going to be more influenced by. So there's a market for both. And so I think, like you said, guys like Brandon, Scott Martin, Jacob Wheeler, these guys who are done really good job of doing both. That, I think, is obviously, as of right now, that's the goal for me, is I want to be able to, especially while I'm young, is like, I don't know if I'm going to make it competitively. I want to do everything I possibly can to make it. But it's like we talked about, it's a tiny, tiny number of people that can make it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to close off any options to other things, whether it be working in content creation for other companies or creating my own content. I think the biggest thing is just you have to want it. You have to work for it. So, and that's something I could always do better at, working every day. So try to keep both. So I try to keep, obviously I love the part. It's easy for me to get sucked into just competing sometimes because I love it so much, but it's important to take that time to use that opportunity that you have to fish. You're fishing all the time. The content is there. You just have to put in the extra effort to turn it into stories and narrative that you can make into content that's valuable to companies.
Yeah, I think also to do like also having like realistic goals, and then I think it's like some of the things when I think about fishing, competitive fishing. Like I've had to like put a halt on the things that I do, because like having realistic goals and like how much I really want to invest in this, and it's you're kind of different than a lot of the other people I've talked to that got into the sport because they weren't as young as you are when they started. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these people it's like almost like a second career to them. Like they had another career. And something just went right, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go be a professional angler now." And not like kind of like where you're at, where it's like you're just like I don't know, it's just like this hits you right in a perfect spot. Whatever your past just kind of lines you up with where you want to, where you kind of want to go. But going back, like having like those realistic goals, like people don't think about like really what it takes to be like a competitive angler. It's not just buying a boat and fishing out of it. It's getting from tournament to tournament, making sure you can continuously do that. Like the money's got to come from somewhere. We all know that like you're probably going to lose. Your turn. Like who knows if you're going to win, get a check. It just seems like a very frustrating way of life. It's like like things really got to be perfect to be able to like sustain it. You know what I mean? And like having like realistic goals and like knowing who you are as an angler and like how good you really not how good you want to be, but how good you really are.
Yeah.
All these things like and having like realistic goals, like really what you want out of it. It's just one of those sports. It's like it's not like professional basketball where like you're either great or you're just not great. You know what I mean? It's like you're either just that guy who's going to make it to the pros, or you're not. Like with bass fishing, it's like you can go shoot, you can go for it. You know what I mean? You can really go for it. I don't know exactly how far you might get, but you can go for it. It's just a lot of just a lot of the variables and stuff that you really got considered. Like, where do you sit with it right now? Like, when you really think about like having the goals, like what you want to like what you want to do, like in the short term and the long term.
In the short term and the long term, as far as like That's I mean, like you said, that's the part that's hard to know because there is no blueprint. I
I
know
know, dude. It's such a scary
that
sport, dude.
yeah, there's guys I've talked to who I know some guys who the way that they're trying to do it is say, look, I'm going to learn everything I can as a co-angler, and I'll try to use the success that I have there to connect me with people, and then use the winnings I have
Right.
from that to go. And then there's guys who go to do the college route, and then I know some people who have made a lot of connections through college fishing, done well, and they hope those connections are good enough that when they decide to go for it, they'll have the financial backing, and then they'll have the catch the right breaks. And then there's other people who say, look, it's financially it's just incredibly risky. It is like gambling to go try it.
Yeah.
And so unless you have an incredible support system, you need to go find a job that will give you the chance to fish and learn, so that if it falls in your favor, you can go after it. But you have to you just have to face the fact that you need to have a job to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I stand on that is really right now is I don't have a firm like set. I don't know which one I'm going for. I just know that I know where I want to go, but I know that that's why I talk about it. For me, it's important. I want to keep my options open to what I can. And that's why I think a degree is nice to have. It's like, well, if all else fails, I can go get a job. I can go, and
Right.
hopefully these same connections that I hope can build sponsorships. If I need to, they can build careers that I could work in this industry that I still get to be a part of it. And I think that, and you see, at least seeing in college, that's one of the cool things about college fishing is you've seen that is actually a very, very viable way to make connections in the industry that lead to careers in the industry, even if it's not competitive angling.
Right.
And then again, financially, coming back to that, it's just, that is probably, at least for someone getting into it, or someone who's never gotten into it, or someone like me who's been into it for a while and watched it and gotten to know some of these guys and hear the backstories, it's the most financially frustrating. I think that's the worst thing about fishing. It's like fishing is a magical sport in that anybody can do it. Anyone can feel. You give them, all that you have to do is go to a pond with a rod and a reel, and you can have a great time and enjoy this sport. And so, but to compete, it's like the financial barriers are just huge. I mean, to be like like the financial cost to go try to be a soccer player is, okay, maybe I got to pay so much for like you can only buy so nice of a cleats, and you only have so many feet. But you can have endless numbers of rods and reels. You can have 400 combos and 7 units on your boat and the newest boat and the newest truck. And in the end, sometimes the person, though there may be two guys who have similar skill sets, the person who's better financially set up will have a better shot at making it. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And nothing against those people, nothing against the guys. Like, they can obviously take every advantage you have. Like, if you have family, if you have, I don't know, if you have an uncle that passes away with a fortune who passes you, like, of course you're going to spend it on a boat. Like, no knock to those guys who do it that way. But
Right.
It is disappointing to see that there are other guys who don't have that. But it's like, man, I know you have the talent. You could do it. Yeah. It's just, it comes down to, you got to have the right break. You got to get a win. You got to make some breakthrough that gives you the chance to make that next step and push forward and make it.
Yeah. And like, I guess there's kind of like two ways I kind of see it. And like, I'm not saying either way is better than the other, but it's like, there's like that one person who really like just grinds in the beginning and just like tournament after tournament and just they stick their head down and they just go and eventually they're like, oh shit, well I made it. And then there's that some person, and look, and the other person on the other side is just as good of an angler, but for whatever reason, I don't know, just you had good parents that put them through college, got them good, whatever. Like the stars aligned, the uncle died, left them a lot of money, and then they say no, like, well, I'm also good at fishing too, and so they go out there and they're able to like, to pursue dreams. It's just one of those sports where it's like, there's just so many ways to get into it. But I mean, it's either you got to be really good and grind, or you got to have like some really good luck happen to you. Whatever, for like the financial part of it. I mean, that's why most of us are in kayaks, because we couldn't financially afford to be in boats, and not just be in boats. I can afford a boat, but I can tell you right now, I can't afford to travel the country and like fish different tournaments. And I can't do that. That's just not in the wheelhouse for me. It would take a lot of winning on the little level, I guess, to get to the big levels. I mean, it's just so many ways to go about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's boat stands for break out another 1,000, and it's so true. So to anybody who's thinking about it, I think you got to know what you want. I think that's a big thing. Like, if you are the type of person who when you watch these tournaments, it's like, there's something in me when I watch some of these tournaments, it's just like that, just like very visceral desire to, I want to be there. I want to try. And some people don't, I think maybe they think, oh, that would be cool. But it's like, I think it does show itself in how bad you pursue it. There is a level which, even if you don't have, you may not have, now the person who has all the right resources might be a step ahead of you. If you really want it, I think that is the thing. If you work hard enough, I think you can. If you have the skills and you work hard enough and you're relentless enough, you'll certainly have a good chance. But it's if you don't want that, I think that's one of the things that I think is really cool about watching the kayak scene, is that guys get the chance to scratch that competitive itch, see new bodies of water, and go out and do what we all love, which is set the hook on a bunch of fish. And you don't have to drop thousands and thousands and thousands to do it. And so like, that is a really cool part. So it just comes down to, like, I think both have their place. Bank anglers have their place. YouTubers have their place. Competitive anglers have their place. You just have to know yourself, know what you want. I think.
But but I also think like you're right. Like like how bad do you really want it? Because I mean, you look at your kind of where your story started and where it's going. It's like you're a 16-year-old kid going to to one of the best anglers fishing camps. You know what I mean? Like to get to know him, and you already had a YouTube channel. You're working that, and then I mean, it's just like I don't know if you ever heard of the Serious Angler podcast. It's another podcast. I'm good friends with the creator over there, and it's just like he has the passion. He loves it. But he doesn't have a boat yet, a big boat, but he has a kayak. So he's going out there and he's fishing in kayak. He's making content. He's getting better. He started a podcast. He's talking to all the best anglers in the country. They're getting to know his name. They're asking him to come on the show, and things like that. And so it's like he's just building connections, building his skills, getting his arsenal ready. And just like, like why wouldn't he get a chance to be in a boat and go fish a big tournament? I mean, he's constantly working towards that. I mean, granted, like if he could buy a boat right now, he'd be there. But like, I mean, I just think it's like it can be done. It's just you just gotta hustle. You can't rely. You also gotta like have those realistic expectations. Like you might not be in a boat now, but the work you put in now, the relationships you create now, are going to help you get to where you want to be in the sport.
Absolutely. I mean, like that's you work with what you got. I mean, whatever wherever you come from, you got to work with what you got, and if you really want it. And that's one of the nice things about it being a small industry is like if you can get into it and start to make connections, those can go surprisingly a long way, especially if you show yourself to be a hard worker and you show yourself to be the kind of person who really does want it. Because again, a lot of us are fishermen, a lot of us have considered that dream. It's like, what it's like to want that. And there's a camaraderie there that can help you. And it certainly helped me in talking with people with these people who own these companies. It's like, who also fish and know what it's like to want to do it and know where you're coming from.
I didn't even think about that. I'm going to apologize because I scheduled this podcast late for me because I thought you were in California for some reason. So,
oh, really?
I'm so sorry that I realized you told me you're in Virginia. I'm like, dude, it's almost 11 o'clock. This guy's probably got class tomorrow. So
I don't have class tomorrow. I make my schedule where I try to do only Tuesday, Thursday classes so I can have days that I can go fishing. So that's
okay. All right. Just want to make sure
we're good.
But let's let's talk about just you and like competing and stuff. Like, what do you see for yourself like right now, the next 5 years? Like, what are you really like working on and working towards? Like, and I like talking about like short-term goals because whenever I think of like long-term goals, it's like, dude, I never thought I was gonna be a podcaster. That wasn't like, so like, a lot of things can happen like in these short intervals of time in our lives and stuff. So like what do you want to do? Like, where are you at right now? And kind of like, what are you really shooting for? Like, because there's like, I guess bass fishing, it's a lot better than what I thought it was, as far as like, there's different leagues you can get into, different routes you can go. Do you have like a short like where do you want to be like in 5 years, as far as like just, and we're speaking strictly competitively?
Competitively, well, again, every season for me, there's like, and that's the thing about, again, fishing, it's the losingest sport there is. It's hard there's nothing you can truly count on. Like you can never say, oh yeah, I will. It's a little bit different. Like it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to put in this many days on the water this year. That's something you can control, but you can't control, oh yeah, I'm going to win this many tournaments this year. I'm going to do, but obviously those are the things that you strive for. So for me, I would, every year I have different ideas in mind of things that I would really like to pursue within the league that or competition level that I'm at. So for me, I was fortunate enough fishing the BFLs here, and in my second and my third year, I won the Angler of the Year titles in the division, right. And that was something I really wanted to do. But once I'd done that, it was like, okay, now I'd really like to win an individual tournament. Like I was a very consistent angler. I'm the guy who can go out and catch 5 fish, and over a year that adds up to a good ranking, and one of the Angler of the Year titles here in the local area. But that doesn't. But winning a single tournament, catching the 5 biggest bass for a single day tournament, that's a lot harder. So that was something where I had to study, change my mindset, and I was able to go out and win. So for me now, at least in the BFLs, a huge goal that I've had is I want to make the All-American Championship. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you have to finish in the top 6 at the regionals. And I've been really close. I've finished 7th before. I've had fish die before where it would have been in all the horror stories that every angler has. I've had those. So I would really like to break through and qualify for that. That's a nationally televised event. That's the kind of breakthrough event that if you could make it to it and win it, right, could jumpstart a career like that. I think that's what at least you're in the back of your mind. I think everyone's hoping for when you fish these kind of tournaments is that maybe, just maybe, if the stars align and I win, it jumps forward. And you look at a lot of guys, at least for me, when I look at a lot of guys' careers, especially the young guys, the guys who got that start early, usually almost always had at least one break. They had one bigger break. They won one tournament that gave them a little bit of a financial jump. They got a little bit of notoriety, something that pushed them forward. Now, can you work at it for years and eventually come in? Yeah, there's that story's there too. And I think that's what's cool is that yeah, you can come in at 38 and be like, yeah, I've worked a job and I've raised a family and now they're graduated and I'm at a place in my career where I can go do it. I can actually try and not have to, and that's cool too. But for the young guys who really want it, that is, I think that is one of the things that I don't want to spoil the opportunity of being young and having the opportunity of I have been striving after this goal to be a professional angler for majority of my life, and where for some guys it's a kind of a 50-50 thing. For me, it's like, oh well, this is my track. And so I think that is why you see a lot of younger anglers now better than ever before, is because one, technology and resources. We can all go watch a professional angler explain in the boat how they're throwing this bait. There's no secrets anymore with live coverage, and there's so many people, everything's so open, you can learn so much faster. And because of that, and with things like college fishing, there's resources. So now you see these guys, the Jordan Lees, the Jacob Wheelers, the Brandon Polniks. It's like they're bred to bass fish. It's like they're created in a lab to catch bass, and then they come out so young and they say, wow, they're so good for so young. It's like, well, they have the experience of the same guys who used to work a job and then raise a family and then come in, and you say, and at that point they've built up the experience. Like, well, they're fast tracking it. So I'd like to, while I am young and have the opportunity to do that, I want to take advantage of that. And so that's why college fishing is a big deal. And that's another goal of mine, is in the short term, because I'd love to, if I could, qualify for the Bassmaster has a great series of college fishing. They really promote it very well. And Bassmaster in particular has done a great job of promoting college angling to companies and builds a lot of connections. So I'd love to they have a bracket championship, which is they take the top 4 anglers from the national championship and they go head to head, and it's all live on their website, and it ends up being televised. And the winner of that gets to go to the classic. They get a wrap truck and boat, and they get your entry fees paid to the opens. So as a college angler, that's my college goal, is I want to get there, to get to that. And that would be, again, a jump start of it. Essentially that opportunity is huge, because it's practically a golden ticket from Bassmaster. Hey, here's a year, go try to be a pro for a year, because you get to compete in the world's biggest tournament. You get to represent a bunch of companies through college fishing, and you get a wrap truck and boat, and they promote the heck out of you. I mean, so it's like, here you go, here's your chance. And so that would be that's a short-term goal. Now, if those don't happen, I've been lucky enough to win a few tournaments here, to have some good finishes where I'm able to, with the help of, with my parents helping me out, filling me in on the small end, I can save some of the money that I win. And so that money that I'm saving, I'm hoping to one day put into fishing the next when I graduate, going and attempting to compete at a higher level, whether that be the MLF Toyota Series or the Bassmaster Opens. So that from whatever happens from there, we'll see. I'm going to try to keep building connections and keep working here within the industry to give me opportunities. But as a competitor, those are the short-term goals. Is I want to make these big-time championships that will give me an opportunity to hopefully fast-track an opportunity to be a professional angler. And if not, then I'll continue on the normal route, which is fishing. Just again, working my way up the ladder. Whether it be how I started. I started on the bank, worked my way up to a boat. Started at the local as a co-angler. I want to work my way up to the pros. So that's the next step on the ladder, is fishing the semi-pro events, being the Toyota Series and the Opens.
All right. So obviously you want to do this for a living, but what's like what would be like the main driving force? Like, is it the big trophy, or is it the ability to do what you love every day for the rest of your life? Because I look at some of these guys who are happy, like they're just happy because like, hey, I get to fish every day for a living, and that's and then there's some guys who just they're so goddamn competitive that like not what I mean, that like not having that trophy like keeps them up at night or whatever, and they got to go see counselors, and it's just like, yeah, but at the same time, dude, like you're fishing for a living, you're well known, like you are a professional angler. You're like, what is it? What is that to you? Like,
that's a really hard one. Again,
we want it all, but it's like, is it one of those things? Yeah. Like, is it like, I mean, like it's what's more important, like to be financially secured and doing what you love, or just being just competitive, crazy, and living for that trophy? You know what I mean?
I've thought about this. Like, it's like, well, if I made it, would I live happily if I made it as hey, you scraped your way onto the tour and you're just one of the guys who just scrapes it together year to year. You're just cutting it by. If I was never truly competitive at it, would I be happy? And on some level, obviously, again, I think that's one of when I get out there and I feel that bite and I set the hook, and when the pieces of the puzzle click together and you figure it out, you realize what fish are doing, and you feel like for a second that you actually, you have this magical sense of, I can call my shots when it comes to fish. And you say, I'm going to get a bite on that log because they're on baiting this bait with the wind and everything. When that all comes together, it's the most magical feeling. And that happens to me whether I'm in a tournament or I'm not. But when it happens in a tournament, it's like, what this level of excitement is suddenly it's here, because to me, because I am so competitive. Right. So I think for me, like when I go out and fish in these local tournaments, my drive is not just to catch fish. I want to win. I mean, I do want to win. Like I want the trophy. I just want to be able to say that I figured it out better than anybody else. Now that doesn't mean that I wish bad on anybody. It's that I want to be better. And so for me, the drive would be to win tournaments, but I got to get there. I got to get there first. So if I can't get there, then obviously I won't have the shot to do that. Right. So, and I think that is what drives me really well, is that, and that's one of the things about bad finishes that can be so good, at least for me, is that even when you have a bad finish, I think for me, sometimes there's a fine line in being too passive about it and being too hard on yourself. Like you can say, oh, all I want to do is win, and if anything other than first place is failure. Well, we've already established this is the losingest sport there is. You're going to be totally depressed. You're going to be miserable. You're never going to be happy. But also, if you just say, well, it doesn't matter, then you're not going to have a drive to, when you mess up, no, I'm going to put in more work. I'm going to put in more time. I'm going to study. What did I do wrong? I'm going to be willing to put myself out there and say, ask guys, hey, what did you guys, and learn, be humble yourself enough to say, okay, I sucked. Let me ask the guys who were catching them, how did you do it, so that next time I'll be better prepared, and hopefully the next tournament you can turn all that into success.
Yeah. All right. So one more question, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So just because you're so young and you're in this part where you're at, and just in case like anyone else is thinking about doing this and pursuing this, like what do you do now on a daily basis? Like obviously you got school, but like just the stuff that you're trying to do to make you successful in the sport and this industry. Like, what are you doing now since you're a college kid and you're also a competitor? Like, what are the things you're doing now besides the studying, besides the homework, and things like that for like specific tournaments, but just like the other part of it. What are you doing now to help make yourself successful?
Taking advantage of all the different resources, but then again, it's about how you apply those. So you can watch all the videos you want, and I think this is something I've learned because you hear this said all the time by other people. It doesn't matter how much you watch and learn, you got to be on the water. And I'm from the generation where I get to soak in more quality information than these guys who are saying that ever got to. So
Right.
so to an extent, I know I've seen the benefit firsthand in my experience on the water that the information I'm getting now is better than the information you got, but still it doesn't, when it comes to competition, nothing translate. It's still true. Nothing translate like experience. I think the saying is you have to get 10,000 hours of something to be an expert.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about, again, like I said, I manage my class schedule in a way that I can be on the lake as much as possible but also while I'm also every day trying to make sure that I watch these tournaments, take notes on guys on how they catch them. I have to go out and try it because you're not going to have, again, fishing is an incredibly mental sport. It's in between the ears. So much of it is. And so much of that is much of that is confidence. And you can watch someone catch something on a certain bait all day, but until you go out and do it yourself and understand the why by doing it and seeing success in your own context of your lakes, you're not going to have the true confidence to be able to do that well and be able to apply that in tournaments. So for me, it's a cliche. I hate to say it because it's said all the time, but for me, it's about how often can I get out there and try it. Now that means for me it's also important to take advantage of the technology and the opportunity to learn that you have, but then you have to go out and apply it. So just because I go to the lake all the time, I try not to go out. I don't go to the same lake, to the same section and throw the same bait where I always catch them. I try to go to a different section, throw different baits and try to do something new, try to take every opportunity as a day to learn and be intentional about my time out there. And from there, hopefully you grow and learn as an angler and just become better. Because again, it's a process of constantly trying to become better. And then through that, the better you get at it, the more satisfying it is and the more fish you catch. So hopefully it's more fun. So it all kind of bounces off each other. So for me, it's about being out there as much as possible and being intentional about trying to learn as much as I can every day that I'm out there.
Cool, man. Well, Jack, I appreciate your time. I know you're a college kid. Didn't go to college, but I hear it's really busy. Dude, like, is there anyone you want to thank that makes fishing easier for you? Is your time to put in a plug where people can follow you as well? This is just your moment to put it out there.
Well, I've had obviously family and friends have been very supportive of me competitive fishing. And I'm obviously very, very grateful for that. I'm also incredibly grateful for the companies, people like Travis, who have believed in me here at Sticks Fishing. He's a sponsor of you. And the product is something that I'm happy to be a part of a company that has product that I believe in. I think that's a huge part of it. Is like, you can't promote something truly if you don't enjoy it and use it. And so the concept of only having what you need, simplifying it where you can in an industry that can be so complex at times, as if you need all this. And my experience is from being on the water a bunch is you don't. So I'm very thankful. So obviously shout out to Sticks Fishing and Yamamoto, Gary Yamamoto. I mean, that is a company I've been very blessed to work with. I mean, they make the most bass catchingest lure of all time. So I'm very thankful to work with them. And then again, if you guys want to follow me at Obsessed Fishing. It's all Obsessed Fishing, one word, no spaces, on Instagram, Facebook, and then you can find me on YouTube. So those are the three main places I really put in a lot of content. And if you want to follow around what I'm doing, watch a kid go around and try to catch bass in tournaments, I'm be glad to show you what I'm doing.
All right, man. Well, Jack, I appreciate it, man. Good luck with the rest of the season. We'll obviously be in touch. We have mutual friends and companies and stuff like that. So dude, keep crushing it, man. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. Love getting to know a fish head like you. And see you down the road, hopefully.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
All right, you too.